Alrighty, looks like we are getting ourselves going for our noontime lives. Dr. P in the house, and welcome to Q2. For those of you who don't measure your life in quarters, um, welcome to April 1st, and I hope the April Fool's Day jokes have been super kind and compassionate. We've been working a lot on kindness and compassion today, and I am coming to you just like for the rest of the week. We're just going to be doing kind of conversations around my transformation and my journey for us to really dive into things for next week, because what I'm going to be presenting next week is the developing the capability process, which is frankly a radically new way I'm bringing to the world to solve your most pressing issues. And I'm super excited to bring this to you. You will recognize a lot of it based on the stuff that I've been doing for the past 3 weeks. And it is really quite something, and I'm so proud of myself for sitting down and doing the work to develop this. And I can't wait to take you through all of it, absolutely all of it. But today, what I want to do is I want to talk about overwork and my overwork journey, and frankly talk a lot about vulnerability, and what that what that takes, and how vulnerability and overwork work, and all these other sorts of over desires and things, and how this all has worked in my life. And so today's coaching is really just a conversation. So it's the first day of the new quarter. It's Q2. I was writing in my journal this morning about how different the world really is, uh, from the start of Q1 to Q2, which is pretty crazy. And looking at who I am being and how I am being in the world. And I'm so excited today to talk about overwork, because overwork is my favorite way of avoiding my emotions, more than food, more than alcohol. Overwork was the way that was acceptable as I was growing up and being formed, not just by my family, but the culture that I grew up in, and where I went to college and what I did in my post-college career. And so today you're gonna hear that journey, and how overwork was inculcated into me so that I would be acceptable. The ways, so what I want to kind of start with is tie this into over desire. All right. So over desire, as we have been going through over the whole, past several days on the coaching calls, over desire is all about this feeling that we have. Over desire is a feeling that we have, that creates all of these urges and urgency in our life. It creates other thoughts and feelings that we have to get something down now. Something should be happening now. This should, and I have no choice, and I need a cookie, or I need a drink, or whatever. And that all kind of stems from over desire. Right, and over desire is often over desire for things to be easy, over desire for things to be other than the way that they are. And over desire always comes from not accepting reality for where it is. And if you're on my email list, I sent out an email, I think 2 days ago, quoting, or maybe yesterday, quoting Byron Katie, which says, and her quote says, How do I know that things are supposed to be happening the way they are happening? Things are supposed to be happening this way, that they are happening this way. So that's how we know we're supposed to go on a lockdown order at midnight tonight, because Governor Mills just posted that. It's because that is what's happening. And when I argue with reality, I only lose 100% of the time. But we learn how to argue with reality anyway because as kids, our reality is so intense and our brains literally don't have the neurons to process it. And so when we don't have the neurons to process it, we do the best that we can. And that's where we get all these habitual things that we do. Anxiety, like puts space between us and our really intense emotions. And panic also puts space between us and our really intense emotions. Because believe it or not, those are emotions that are easier to feel than those core vulnerabilities around shame, humiliation, rejection, vulnerability, those sorts of things. It's easier for our brains to feel anxiety than it is for us to feel rejection. Okay. And so we developed these things as ways that we adapted to the world as kids. But what we also developed is we developed ways to fit in and mitigate our intense emotions and who we are so that we could fit in with the dominant culture, whether it's our family culture or our work culture, or not our work culture, like our school culture, and our college culture. I mean, a lot of this comes in what you experienced in college, I have found, and in our early professional careers. And we take a lot of thoughts from that, and then we just start believing them because we get rewarded. And so the high achiever goal cycle, which I talk about, and I think I've probably diagrammed out, but the high achiever goal cycle is all about when we're little, we achieve goals because we're naturally good at something, okay, and we achieve goals. And we get external rewards for those goals. And what we teach ourselves and is reinforced is that when we achieve something, we get extrinsic reward. And so if we want extrinsic reward, we have to achieve something. So extrinsic means coming from the outside. And we teach ourselves that. And high achievers are really, really good at that. I am super good at doing things for other people, right? And that is that's totally rewarded in my culture. A's were rewarded. Getting into the right college was rewarded. Getting a good job after college was rewarded. Doing the right clubs and doing the right things over the summer, that was all rewarded, and that was all external because I'm a Gen Xer and that's how we grew up, right? And so it is just what it is, and we learned these pathways of getting rewarded, and it works until it doesn't. And it stopped working for me 2 years ago in the story that I told with that client and chasing after that client. But I learned to overwork. I absolutely learned to overwork. And what happened was we moved. So I grew up, I spent like the first 10 years of my life in Westchester County, New York. And then my dad's job moved to Fairfield County, Connecticut. And while Westchester County, New York and Fairfield County, Connecticut back then might have been geographically awfully close, I mean, culturally, they could not have been more different. And we moved to like northern Fairfield County. So I'm from Newtown, Connecticut. Yes, that Newtown, Connecticut. And I don't even know when we moved, I moved for 7th grade. So I guess that was in 86. And the school cultures were very, very different. I was in a school system in New York that was, on paper, probably fairly good, or my parents wouldn't have put me there. But in reality, it was really quite challenging. And socially, it wasn't like acceptable to be smart. And so I learned a lot of things about not being smart, which was a lot of fun. Got that girl math thing going on for a while. And then we moved to Newtown, and Newtown was very, very different. And it was not only culturally acceptable to be smart, you were expected to be smart, and you were expected to work hard, and you were expected to like achieve. And by then I had learned how to be a people pleaser, and that looks a lot like work. People pleasing looks a lot like work at school, and that's what I learned how to do. And so I did all the things, and I got rewarded for all of the things. So I did more of the things, and I got rewarded for more of the things, and it all culminated in an early decision acceptance to Wellesley, right? I applied to I applied to one college. I was going to go home and I was going to apply to Georgetown, but I got my Wellesley early decision letter before I had to fill out my Georgetown application. And that was that. And I went to Wellesley and it changed my life. And one of the things I learned at Wellesley was how to overwork and how, I mean, it was culturally acceptable in Newtown to overwork. Holy shnikes, was it culturally acceptable at Wellesley to learn how to overwork. And then I went to work at an oil company, but I worked in like we were called wildcatters, and I like did economic analysis for oil wells right after college. And wildcatters, that whole culture is overworking. And so what I really ended up learning was to go out and seek external rewards through work in order to feel good about myself. And it didn't it I mean, and it worked for a long time. I mean, it really really did. I mean, I got a lot done in my 20s. I got into veterinary school as my 20s in my 20s, and like Lord Almighty, if veterinary school isn't the walking talking definition of overwork, I don't know what is. And so I did, like I did all of those things. And what I have figured out is all of that overwork, all of that time spent in front of my computer, all of that time checking email, all of that time making sure everybody else is happy, is all based on creating distance between me and the core vulnerabilities that I feel. And it's the same core vulnerabilities that everybody else feels: shame, humiliation, fear, vulnerability. Vulnerability is a core vulnerability. That's what we call that, right? And so what I discovered is that the this is so interesting. So it was actually I coined the term overwork in January, or at least I think I did. And I noticed myself habitually refreshing my email, looking for more emails to come in so I could go do more client work. I could go do more client work. I could solve more problems for clients. Okay, because I have this idea that if my clients like me, I will feel good and my business will grow. Okay, what this looks like in our houses, because you can overwork whether or not you're getting a paycheck. Okay, so this has literally nothing to do with whether or not a paycheck comes in. Because I will tell you, I was listening to Susie Orman's podcast, Women in Money, and she came out with this statistic about unemployment numbers, okay? And our unemployment numbers for last week grew by an order of magnitude more than our highest unemployment ever filed, which was filed in 2008 at the height of the Great Recession. Okay, so there were 625,000 unemployment claims filed in 1 week during the Great Recession, and last week there was like 3.3 million. Okay, there's a very big difference between those two things. And so we have a lot of people, and people who are watching this that are in the process of going through unemployment, right? Who have the habit of overworking. Now, we encourage this because, when we have the conversation about unemployment, the question is are you going out looking for employment? And there's a whole entire political conversation we can have about that. Who's watching the kids while you're doing your 20 hours of community service, I ask you? And we're about to find all that stuff out, even though all that stuff has been suspended, right? So whether or not you are getting a paycheck, you can overwork. All right, overwork at work looks like spending all of your hours in front of your computer, futzing with your website, sending out emails, and doing really fairly low value things that may or may not answer the following question, which is this a profit generating activity? You know you are overworking in a place where you make a paycheck if you answer, is this a profit generating activity, with a no. Okay, unless you can directly tie it, and I really mean that. Like, people are like, but not everything makes it. What about da da da? I'm like, dude, unless there's a line, it may have a couple of dots in it, but there has to be a direct line. And hitting refresh on your email one more time when it's time to shut the computer down and go spend time with your kids is not a profit generating activity. Rewriting your website for the 10th time and not actually writing the blog, not a profit generating activity. If you are blogging and you're blogging for a sense of trying to feel better as opposed to being in service to your people, not a profit generating activity. Okay. And so then if you take that idea where your next profit generating activity, if we were talking about work, is activity that comes for being in service to your clients. All right. And we take that and we translate that to our house, all right, and to living and working at home, because even if you don't get a paycheck, I think, what was it, for International Women's Day, there was, and shout out to my mother, this is an underestimate, like the contribution, the unpaid contribution of women to global society and running of global society was valued at like $10 trillion. Okay. At the end of all of this stimulus in the United States, okay, this stimulus is probably going to be around $6 trillion. Okay. So every year, year in and year out, women provide 10 trillion, so an order of magnitude larger, $10 trillion worth of unpaid labor to the world market. Okay, so don't tell me you don't work if you don't get a paycheck, because that is in no way, shape, or form true. All right, and there's the example of women's labor. There is value that is associated with it. Whether you get a paycheck for that value, another political conversation. Obviously, one I'm very passionate about, right? And so, so how we translate overwork at home is, you know, looking at work that needs to be done. And the kids do this all the time. Cleaning something that's already clean is overwork, right? Cleaning something that's not dirty. You know, my kids, when we're cleaning up the kitchen, you know what everybody loves to do? They like to clean the counters. And one kid will clean the counters, and then the next kid will clean the counters. And then if we're really lucky, the third kid will clean the counters. But kid number 2 and 3, cleaning the counters again, that is overwork. It's not delivering value to anybody, right? And so we can do this when we are home all the time, and it always comes from avoiding a negative emotion. Okay, we eat to avoid negative emotions, we drink a lot of the times to avoid negative emotions, and we overwork to avoid negative emotions. Okay, and so when I am overworking in my house, to me, I caught myself doing this when I was cleaning, like deep cleaning my windows. Okay, I am not sure that is the highest and best use of mommy's time, is deep cleaning the windows. Right? Cleaning the windows, sure, so we can see out of them, but getting the muck and grime out of distant corners of the windows, considering the number of windows we have in this house, not sure that's the best and highest use of mommy's time, right? And so that's what overwork looks like. Overwork also looks like, in both a work environment and a home environment, looks like not completing tasks. Okay? Constantly adding tasks to your day. The laundry never being done is, if your laundry is never done, okay, and you don't have, like, this is when we're doing laundry, okay, and I understand we got 5 people in our house, okay, I totally understand lots and lots of laundry, and we used to cloth diaper. So, but it's very easy to overwork the laundry when you're constantly flipping the laundry and not putting it away, right? If you have a pile of laundry you got laundry overwork going on because you are literally creating a whole backlog of things that need to be washed or that are washed and dried and need to be folded and put away. So anytime you're trying to understand overwork in your own life, if you look around and you have a lot of incomplete tasks, you probably avoid negative emotions by doing other sorts of work instead of completing tasks. When I teach this to my coaching group, I teach this as work instead. Okay, there are a lot of times we do work instead of the work we need to do. And long ago, I had a yoga teacher who was completely crazy, but she did say one very key piece of advice. Okay, that is literally the only thing that has stuck with me besides her little crazy cultishness. Um, and what she said was, I know what to do, and I do it. All right, and you know what to do, and the question is whether or not you do it. And I always ask myself when I'm getting into the crazy, like the right, which happens. So this morning, we had Spectrum come and install another line, so that I could hardwire to the internet. I don't, dudes. I am not a networking person. I left that world a long time ago. So that I could hardwire in, so that when I do these lives, and I do a lot of lives, I could have better signal and better sound, because I know the sound hasn't been coming out well. And as best as we could troubleshoot it, it is a Wi-Fi problem and a Wi-Fi bandwidth problem. Okay, and so we were upgrading that today, and we thought we had the hardware solution, and and none of that actually works, right? And because why would it work on the first try? Because that, we're just developing the capability, my friends, of hardwiring the computer. Right? After this, it'll be a breeze because we'll know how to do it. And so, but all of these uncompleted tasks, when what I'm doing, and I'm looking at my to-do list, and all of a sudden I have this gigantic to-do list, and it's because I'm avoiding the core vulnerabilities that happens when your electronics don't work, right? Like, think about that. Think about all the things that you do when you're trying to get on the internet because you have work, because maybe your next profit generating step is on the internet, right? Sending that email saying, hey, do you want to enroll as a client, or do you want to buy my thing? Maybe that is your next profit generating step. And the sheer helplessness that comes when you can't do it. All right. And what I want you to do the next time you feel that sheer helplessness, okay, and maybe it is reading the New York Times. I read the New York Times last night. I had a lot of minutes left on my social media, and I read the New York Times last night, and the headline was the headline around it's we have another 2 weeks of this getting worse than it getting better. New death toll estimates are more than the Korean War and the Vietnam War combined. And I felt this real sense of helplessness, an absolute real sense of helplessness. And if that is where you are, and your urge in helplessness is to go vacuum, or to rewrite your website, or to do some other business activity that really isn't a profit generating activity, and you really know what those are, or do a family activity that isn't something that creates results in more connection, or an easier place to live in, right? That doesn't give you a sense of ease. And instead, your urge is to go and get some busy work done and disappear into busy work. What if you just sat with that helplessness for a while? Because I have been overwhelmed by helplessness, between the helplessness over the headlines I read in the New York Times, and the helplessness that I feel in the face of Um, my networking solution that was supposed to be here, believe it or not, those helpless feels this helpless just feels helpless, right? And the way I deal with that is I say, I give myself permission to feel helpless right now. All right, I really give myself permission to feel helpless right now, and I am developing the capability to build my business in the face of feeling helpless and do the work anyway. I build my business in the face of feeling fear and anxiety. I build my business in the face of feeling confusion and overwhelm. Why can't I just build my business in the face of feeling helpless? Why can't I parent my kids? Why can't I be a wife to my husband, a daughter to my mom? There are so many things that we can do even when we have negative emotions associated with what we are doing, okay? And we do that by sitting with those negative emotions and just allowing them to be there with us. And that's what we do. And the truth is that if you look at the research, tolerating the discomfort of negative emotions, tolerating this discomfort of understanding where we are and that we don't want to be there and being there anyway, that is what builds neural pathways. And we only really have to do it for a couple of minutes. And a couple of minutes, I mean, folks, we have the attention span of goldfish. So actually, we have a shorter attention span than goldfish. Goldfish have an attention span of 8 seconds. We have an attention span of 6. Okay. And so, like, just work on your capacity to develop, and it's a longer attention span. Because believe me, human beings can have nice long attention spans. We call that focus time. Right. And so it's just all about developing the capacity in the urge to overwork and go do all of the things to instead sit there with the feeling of vulnerability and helplessness, right? And being and one of the easiest ways to do it, and this is a true story, it's 12:27 right now Eastern time, and I got on this call feeling super helpless and really really vulnerable around my literally around my network, guys, like my hardwired my network. And I got on here and I told you my story, and I like shared vulnerability, right, in a way that feels really authentic to me. And I am not kidding, I feel a lot better. Like I really do feel a lot better. And being open and honest and vulnerable with your people, or open and honest to start with yourself, feels really good and is a way to develop the capability to understand those urges and that desire to overwork and to do everything else instead of feeling the feelings. All right, so that's what I have for you today. You are all beautiful, amazing human beings. Maybe tomorrow I will see you with a hardwire to the internet, but we'll see. Heck, maybe even increasing our bandwidth solved my sound problem, but we'll see. I love you all, and tomorrow we are going to dive in and tackle core vulnerabilities around money. So I think tomorrow we're doing incoming money, and then Friday we're doing outgoing money. All right, and then we will be developing this idea over the course of the next month. You are amazing, beautiful people. I love you all very, very much, and go give us a like and a share or whatever it is on YouTube, and send these videos to anybody who you think would benefit from them. Have a great day, everybody, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.